to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity by 2030, where Goal 13 specifically speaks of climate action. And accordingly, Bangladesh is trying to accommodate climate change related issues in her greater agenda of Vision 2041 and Delta Plan 2100 for the security and prosperity of our future generation. Ladies and gentlemen, today's webinar is designed to address the climate change challenges for Bangladesh in the Bengal region. And this webinar is jointly organized by Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Maritime University and IHE Netherlands under the joint collaboration project funded by Foreign Ministry of Netherlands and managed by NUFFIC. And we are extremely grateful to them. Here, I also would like to mention that this seminar also aims at educating and generating awareness among the faculty and students of our university on this very important topic as it concerns all of us. Now, let me give you a brief about today's program. To start with, after my talk will be over, we'll have a short documentary film on a climate change to set the scenario for about 6 minutes or so. Thereafter, we'll invite our keynote speaker, Dr. Ainun Neshat. And after he speaks, we'll have our Vice Chancellor to speak for a few minutes. And thereafter, we have a special guest who will be the ambassador of our Netherlands, and we'll be keenly waiting to listen to our Excellency. Thereafter, we have 5 guest speakers, Dr. Alvaro, and we have Dr. Nazrul Islam, Dr. Ali, and Dr. Saiful Islam, and lastly, Dr. Masumur Rahman. And thereafter, we'll have a question and answer session for about half an hour. And thereafter, I will try to conclude the session by around 1700 hours. That's our plan so far. Now, during the talk of our keynote speaker will speak for about 15 minutes, and straightaway he will go for the question and answer session, which will be for around 10 minutes. And you can have your question and answer sessions, questions in the question box. And also during the talk of the other speakers, you are free to write your questions and the speaker's name also, if you want from some specific one to respond, speaker to respond. And I will request the speakers, if they want to respond instantly, they can instantly respond, or later on we can take the questions. With this now, few words. Now, may I invite everyone to have a look at the video clip and to set the scenario of, which will set the scenario of today's webinar on climate change. Let's see the video clip.
We start with the stark findings of an international team of scientists led by the UK Met Office, which raised profound questions about the future of the Earth's climate.
Climate change is a real and serious issue, but isn't the climate always changing? What exactly is climate change? Why should we care? Well, the Earth's climate has changed throughout history. Most of these slight changes are caused by small variations in the Earth's orbit. But climate change as we know it today is characterized by an abrupt increase in the Earth's temperature. It is estimated to have gotten 1.2 to 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit warmer in just the last century. 10 out of the last 13 years were the warmest on record. 97% of climate scientists agree that this new tendency is not caused by the variations of the Earth's orbit, but rather very likely caused by human activity. One of climate change's biggest victims are oceans. Oceans regulate the Earth's temperature and provide 50% of the Earth's oxygen. But climate change has increased the global temperature of the oceans by more than 0.3 degrees Fahrenheit since 1969. Climate change has also caused the sea level to rise. Just in the last century, sea levels have risen 6.7 inches. Natural disasters like floods, tornadoes, and deadly heat waves are more obvious to humans because of their immediate impact and their sharing of the images in the media.
If you want to get a sense of what's at stake at the Paris climate talks, Bangladesh pretty much says it all. There were more people here at direct risk from sea level rise and extreme weather events than anywhere else on the planet.
এখন আমরা দেখতেছি যেটা জলবায়ু পরিবর্তন আগে যেমন ধারাবাহিকতা ছিল বন্যার সময় বন্যা খরার সময় খরা এখন কিন্তু এটা হচ্ছে এখন দেখা যাচ্ছে খরার সময় হঠাৎ করে বৃষ্টি হচ্ছে বন্যাও হচ্ছে আবার যখন বৃষ্টির প্রয়োজন বৃষ্টি নেই অনাবৃষ্টি হচ্ছে রোদের জন্যই থাকা যাচ্ছে না
Seem overwhelming, but there's reason for hope. If we embrace solar and wind power to their full potential, we can cut the world's yearly carbon emissions by over. Already, Germany generates 27% of its electricity from renewables, with a goal of 80% by 2050. Denmark has shown it can produce more wind energy than it can use, and England is building the world's biggest offshore wind farm. Communities large and small are taking steps. A new public building in Mexico City has an exterior that breaks down air pollutants, erasing the effects of 1,000 cars each day. Paris installed street tiles that harvest energy from foot traffic. Other cities are paving streets with smog-eating concrete and sidewalks with recycled materials. Individuals can make a difference too, through the choices we make every day. If every American driver drove 10 miles less each week, it could eliminate more than 100 billion pounds of carbon from the air each year. New innovations are making important strides possible, and more are on the way, but we can't wait. Reimagining our world's energy future will take a shared sense of urgency from countries, companies, cities, and all of us. Working together, real change is possible.
I love my people. I dedicated my life for the people. I want to establish Bangladesh as a poverty-free, hunger-free, developed country and Bengali people as a developed nation.
Right, thank you very much. I think this video clips says it all, and the scenario is set for the webinar. Now, to start with, we'll have our keynote address by Professor Dr. Ainul Nishat. Of course, he doesn't require much introduction, but even then, for the benefit of our foreign friends, I'll just speak a few words only, sir, and then hand over to you, sir. Professor Dr. Ainul Nishat is recognized in Bangladesh and everywhere as a pioneer expert of water resource management and climate change in Bangladesh. Currently, he's involved in Brack University as Professor Emeritus, and he was also formerly the Vice Chancellor of the same university. He was also the country representative of Bangladesh, followed by Senior Advisor of Climate Change in Asian region in International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN. Professor Ainul Nishat is also a key member of climate change negotiation team for Bangladesh and represented Bangladesh at UN climate change conferences since Bali till today. Now, without further ado, may I now request Dr. Ainul Nishat to take over the floor, please, sir. So you have 15 minutes time, which will be followed by 10 minutes question and answer session. Thank you very much, sir. Floor is yours, sir.
Good morning and good afternoon. Can you see my slides?
You have to share it, sir.
Yes, I'm looking for the share word.
The billion slides from Anisha, sir.
Should be somewhere. So it looks like I can find it. I hope now you can see it.
Not yet, sir.
Not yet.
So share in, sir.
Sorry, I'm having problem with share. My apologies.
Sir, you have to first open the slide and then go to the share screen. Okay. Open the slide, keep it there.
Yeah, you can minimize it and then go to the share and then just click on the share.
Sorry, it's not working. So let me go ahead without the slides.
Can I give a suggestion? You can send your slide to somebody else who can share on behalf of you. You can send through email and then somebody else can share and you can use it. If you want to use this.
Sir, please go ahead with your
mechanism.
Talk,
okay.
It's a question of time.
Sir, please go ahead with your talk.
Okay, I go ahead with my presentation. First is my apologies, and I thought I have 25 minutes of time, and looks like it has been slashed by 10 minutes. And I'm happy with the excellent introduction that you gave about me, but let me add one thing. I was adjunct professor at IHE Delhi for about 6 years, many years back, which I almost forgot. Having said that very closely, in my presentation, I had first mentioned what are the key issues related to climate change impacts in Bangladesh. Obviously, if we sum up, then the coastal belt of Bangladesh is will be the worst affected area. But the main problems are erratic rainfall, untimely rainfall, short duration, heavy rainfall, flood, drought-like conditions, cyclones, tornadoes, sea level rise, salinity increase, tidal surge, riverbank erosion, coastal erosion, lightning, health hazard, and impact on ecosystem and flowering pattern. And that's the main concern. Today is a very important day for the world because elections are happening in USA, and what will be the result, we don't know. Whatever happens, USA is bound with UNFCCC, so they are committed to support adaptation, mitigation, finance. Main debate is on finance. They cannot escape it, but they can run away from Paris Agreement, where they are supposed to commit when the Paris Agreement becomes operational by 2023 or 2024, pay huge amount of financial support to the Green Climate Fund. Having said that, if we move to the coastal region of Bangladesh or the Bay of Bengal region, maybe we need to define it. Now, first is the coastal zone, and second, I would like to cut short, call it near shore and offshore, because the impact of climate change would be different. Now, the coastal zone is very important because it protects, it has to, shall I say, the mangroves in the coastal belt protect the area from the fury of the storm surges, which is one of the major impact of climate change. This year, we had 3 big events, Amphan, Phony, and Bulbul, and the 4th one was about to come. The other problem in the coastal belt is increase in salinity. So the salinity level is increasing. Drinking water in Gopalganj, which is the constituency of Prime Minister, in the winter months is no longer suitable for the purpose of drinking. In the areas of Satkhira, Khulna, Bagherhat, Barguna, drinking water is a serious issue. People are suffering from health issue. Salinity is slowly moving up, and we can foresee in 100 years' time, if I draw a line starting from Jasor to Gopalganj to Chandpur to Feni, that would become part of the sea, that would have the salinity of the sea. And very soon the land would become saline. So that would be about, and then if we draw a line between Rajshahi to Shirazganj to Bhairav Bazar, that would become brackets saline or of various degrees, and that would impact the ecosystem a lot. Actually, in my next slide, I had elaborated what would be the impact on health, and then I showed how the climatic events are changing, the seasons are changing. Bangladesh is a country of 6 seasons. Unfortunately, now you see 4 seasons, 2 are gone. And I jokingly say the main impact would be on the poets and the writers of songs. Rabindranath Tagore would have to revise most of his songs because the seasons have changed totally. And then I had a slide to show how the cyclones are formed and how the near shore and the coastal belt is affected, and the impact of salinity. And then I moved on to show all these impacts of climate change. What are the total impact? The main impact is on food security. Let me alert you. What is the objective of the global legal documents that has been prepared, which is the UNFCCC 1992 and Paris Agreement 2015. In between, we had Kyoto Protocol in 1997. In 2015, the world is committed to ensure food security and full stop. That's the only point. We must ensure, we must control global rise of temperature in a manner that food security is not impacted. 1992, which is the parent agreement based on which everything is moving, that had 3 objectives. ecosystem is not altered, food security is not hampered, process of sustainable development is not made difficult. So food security is the key thing. Please remember that. And this would happen because with increase in temperature, change in wind direction, change in rainfall pattern, the flowering pattern of the country would change. In 50 years' time, 60 years' time, I may not be there. But production of paddy, production of wheat would go down significantly unless we can come out with new varieties of cultivar. Now, the food security and the natural disasters should become erratic and more intense, and that would result in serious level of out-migration or displacement. In Bangladesh, the districts of Satkhira, Khulna, and Bagherhat and Barguna, already the population growth is negative. How come? Because people are moving out. And I couldn't show you, but we have an assessment district-wise, what would be the adverse impact. And the worst suffering district in Bangladesh would be Satkhira, the southwestern corner of Bangladesh, and next is Khulna and Bagherhat, and that includes the port of Mongla. And also Paira port would be seriously affected. So moving from coastal belt to near shore, the increase of salinity and ocean acidification would have serious impact at the global level, because the coral leaves would become bleached and white, and the production of coral islands or their growth would be very difficult. Small, low-lying coastal delta like Bangladesh or small islands would totally vanish, like Maldives and Kiribati and Marshall Island and Tuvalu. And interestingly, US government now has a rule, any person from Tuvalu, Marshall Island or Kiribati arriving any US port of entry would be given authority to or would be permitted to stay permanently in USA. So they're taking care of that is how the migration from the people who would be totally lose their homeland are being thought about. In nearshore, another thing would happen. The fish and the aquatic life would change their lifestyle, their breeding ground, their land would move. In an international workshop a few years back, I was talking to my friend from Jamaica and Barbados, and they said that in our coast, the fish has all moved to Florida. I said, nothing wrong in that. Everybody wants to move to USA, so your fish from your coastline has moved to Florida. But think of the plight of the fishermen, because they would not be allowed to cross the border line. Same thing is happening between Malaysia and Indonesia. In Bangladesh, we do not have such study to see whether the fishing areas are moving. But my feeling is it is moving. The coastal belt of Bangladesh is recording a very dense population of Irrawaddy dolphins. The global population is totally, I think, around 6,000 to 10,000. If it is 10,000, maybe 6,000 is now in the Bay of Bengal. All of a sudden, there is a huge concentration. The coastal, so moving to deep sea, the main problem in deep sea would be the storm surges, because intensities and frequencies of cyclonic weather would increase. So for the maritime people, the people who control the shipping and other thing, they have to pay attention. And for that, the solution would be to be more, pay more attention to the warning system and the forecasting system. Now, in the warning system and forecasting system for cyclone and flood, in the coastal belt of Bangladesh, people are totally confused because it is given in a language which is only understood by professionals like Professor Hafiza Khatun or Professor Saiful Islam, who are present here today. Even I get confused at times. This is a serious area. For some reason, the government is raising a red flag to review the cyclone warning and the storm surge warning. It can be done in a bigger way. We need to pay attention to a few other issues besides the climatic issues, which are the environmental concern. Now, the oceans are areas where they absorb huge amount of carbon dioxide, especially the planktons. But we are now observing certain pockets in the ocean and the sea which are now becoming devoid of oxygen. I do not know whether it is any relationship with climate change. Professor Saiful Islam would be able to clarify on this issue. One of the major issue which is now worrying the world is, as the moderator very correctly said, is carbon dioxide production. And one of the main source of carbon dioxide is the bunker fuel, which is the fuel used by ocean liners and ocean-going vessels and the aircrafts. So serious research is going on bunker fuel reduction and making them environmentally more friendly and producing less carbon dioxide. The next slides I had talked about the relationship between SDG 13 and SDG 14. 13 relates to climate change and 14 relates to life in the sea, which talks about the marine life. And finally, I wanted to highlight what the whole world has to do is to go for renewable energy. And we heard that a lot of research is going on and a lot of interesting work is going on. I don't care whether what is the result of election in USA, because that would have big impact on the climate change negotiation process. But the scientists in USA are changing. There is no new coal-fired power station, and they are now paying attention to solar and wind. The next global meeting on climate change will be held in Glasgow in November 2021. And Glasgow has declared that they would be carbon neutral by the time the global conference happens. Even China, which is now the biggest contributor to global volume of carbon dioxide, has declared that by 2030, their carbon production would peak, and by 2060, they would be carbon neutral. The major polluters are China and India and USA and European Union. But these four countries, they are also, or the European Union and USA and Russia and Japan, they are pointing their fingers at India and China. So China has already declared that they would be following the right path. India has to come out strongly on that, and we hope we will do it. Now, in Bay of Bengal countries, we have a number of political associations like BIMSTEC and Bengal, the Indian Ocean Rim countries and other things. But my personal understanding is our political masters are very serious about it. Bangladesh is now chair of the most vulnerable countries of the world. And our Prime Minister a few days back has given a very clarion call how to handle climate change related issues. And the two Prime Ministers from India and Bangladesh, whenever they meet, in their record of discussion, I always find at least 2 paragraphs related to climate change and at least 1 paragraph related to the Sundarban, the mangrove forest. So we need to adjust to the whole world's situation. Global temperature has gone up by 1 degree. It may go up by 1.5 degree by 2030. It may go up by 2 degree by 2050. Beyond that, the world has promised not to allow the rise of temperature beyond 2 degrees, but most probably it will go to 3.86 or 4 degrees Celsius. So in 40 years' time, there will be real bad days, and it is not going to happen all on a sudden. It is going to increase slowly. Like the sea level rise, the rate in Bangladesh is around 5 to 6 millimeters per year. So summing up, I would say we need to pay serious attention to climate change related factors in all development plans, especially related to the coastal belt and Bay of Bengal. And someone just mentioned the Delta Plan. The origin of Delta Plan in Netherlands, the whole trigger was climate change, and it paid attention to the coastal belt. So the Delta Alliance and others pay attention to coastal belt, though Bangladesh Delta Plan talks about northern Bangladesh and the hill tracts, which I don't mind. But point is, special attention should be paid to the coastal belt because that is the most vulnerable people, and this is where the density of population is very high. With that, let me say thank you very much for giving me the honors, and my apology for not being able to share the slides. I will send it to the organizer, and those who are interested can collect it from him. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, sir, for your very excellent talk, and which is always extremely pertinent and absolutely to the point. There are a lot of points that you have given, sir, and definitely if you share your slides, we will definitely share it with the audience and with everybody that they want. And now, sir, we have around 5 minutes time for you, sir. There are a few questions that has come up. Let me just read it one or two for you, sir. And if you can take some of them and answer it shortly, I think that will be good, sir. So one of the question came up that many countries arrange this type of awareness programs, but why plans does not come in action? A very basic question, but I think it's a pertinent question. And another question came as climate change affects not only through sea level rise, but also through flood in rainy season. And what are we planning to do about it? And also the talk about reduction of CO2 from carbon from transport of vehicles and so on, sir. So if you can take one or two questions on this.
So very, very quickly, the first person said very correctly that we do have a lot of meetings and seminars. What is the result? And the second person said, just possibly he typed his questions before my presentation, where I listed about 15 or 20 impacts. But at the end of the day, I summarized impact on food security or production of food is the main concern. And sea level rise and salinity is the most serious concern for Bangladesh, and also the storm surges and cyclonic weather. Now, Bangladesh is the most prepared country in the world to face climate change. We have NAPA document prepared in 2005 and revised in 2009. We have just started preparing the NAP document, of which I am the team leader. We have just started revising our NDC document, Nationally Determined Contributions. We have just started preparing transformative capacity building document. We have the Bangladesh Climate Change Strategy and Action Plan, which was gazetted in 2009. If all the ministries and all the government agencies and all the academic institutions and all the professors would have read the BCCSAP 2009, then many of these questions would not have come. We have legally produced documents, or the documents that is legally enforceable on how to pay attention. But the government agencies and ministries like to follow business as usual and follow the precedents. What we did last year, that we want to do. This time we are going to produce a law by which everybody would have to pay due attention to climate change in all their activities. Still, everybody is not fully sensitized. We need these sorts of program for sensitization that is essential for carrying all the nations together. The island countries, island nations are very serious because they are the frontline countries. Countries like USA, which believes that they have a lot of money and they can be safe, which is not correct. Half of Manhattan would go underwater. Cape Canaveral in Florida would go underwater. Louisiana would go underwater. So there would be adverse impact. Every country of the world would suffer. Some country may have their capacity to face it. Some country need, like Bangladesh, will need technological support and financial support. That is what we are trying to push at the global level. At the national level, we are trying to push for adaptation. Mitigation or reduction of greenhouse gases is not our cup of tea. We produce only less than 3% of global greenhouse gases. Our per capita emission is 0.3 tons per person per year as compared to 40 tons in Qatar or 23 tons in USA. So we need to understand what are our key issues where we should pay attention, and for that we need discussion sessions like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Your talk is always excellent, and there is so much to learn from you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, now I think it's time to listen to our Vice Chancellor. May I now invite our Vice Chancellor of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Maritime University, Rear Admiral Khalid Iqbal, to address the audience, please. Ladies and gentlemen, the Admiral.
Thank you very much. Before I speak, I would like to welcome His Excellency, the Ambassador of Netherlands to Bangladesh, Mr. Harry Parvez. I think we just got him connected a few minutes back. Welcome to the program, sir. How are you?
Thank you. Very good. I'm glad I'm just in time to listen to you. I'm sorry I could not follow the previous speakers. But thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I know, sir, you are a very busy man. Still, you have made the time. Thank you. The special guest of today's webinar, the Ambassador of Netherlands, His Excellency Mr. Harry Parvez, the keynote speaker, Dr. Ainun Nishad, the learned speakers and panelists from home and abroad, distinguished academicians, dear students of BSMRMU, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you all, and good morning to my friends in Netherlands. It's a matter of immense pleasure and privilege for BSMRMU to welcome you all to this very important and pertinent webinar on climate change challenges in Bangladesh and Bay of Bengal region. And as part of our webinar series being held every month during the ongoing pandemic, we have selected this important theme to share our ideas and thoughts. As the moderator has said earlier, on the climate change challenges, the issues, and what we are supposed to do in future to mitigate and minimize or neutralize the challenges. We are grateful to His Excellency the Ambassador for his presence, and I particularly acknowledge the very proactive and amicable role of Netherlands Embassy in pursuing the cause of education, especially the maritime higher education in Bangladesh, because of the NUFFIC project that we have got for 2 years. And that's really going on wonderful. And thank you very much, your good office especially. And as the moderator has said also, that this webinar is also as a part of our series of seminars being conducted jointly by my university and the NUFFIC agents. As the moderator has already said about Dr. Ainun Nishad, he is a very renowned expert and on water and climate change issues. And at the same time, I also welcome our distinguished academicians and guest speakers, Dr. Nazrul, Dr. Saiful Islam, and Dr. Masum, for sharing their views and ideas on the topic. We are eagerly looking for the interaction. And already we have, before the ambassador for you, sir, that Dr. Ainun Nishad has already talked and delivered his keynote presentation, and that was really wonderful, and it has really set the scene exceedingly well. And we are now ready for discussion on this pertinent, at times difficult to understand why things are happening, what to do. But again, we can feel the brunt of the climate change on a day-to-day basis. I welcome Dr. Alvaro and Dr. Ali Dasgate from IHE Delft, Netherlands, who are our partner in the NUFFIC project. And we know that IHE Delft is an institution involved in the formulation of Bangladesh Delta Plan 2100 with our government. Ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, I would like to pay our deepest tribute to our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, with whose name this university has been proudly glorified. So I always find it, important to mention that we are celebrating his birth centenary throughout the year. And as a visionary leader, he was truly aware of our maritime heritage and the potentials of the oceanic and the riverine sector. And immediately after our independence in 1971, he revitalized our maritime sector and gave us a direction for future by enacting the Territorial Waters and Maritime Zones Act 1974. Very interestingly, that was a milestone in the maritime history of Bangladesh. And why I am raising that issue, because it did not only mention about our jurisdictions and rights and responsibilities in our maritime areas. If anybody goes to that act, 1974, you can see that there was a very clear and distinct mention about the oceanic weather issues, about the environmental pollution issues, and about all the other relevant issues, which really we talk when the discussion of climate change really comes. So I'm talking about 1974, and that was 8 years before the United Nations Convention of Law of the Sea, that is UNCLOS 3, 1982, was promulgated. So we always say that Bangabandhu, our father of the nation, he is also the architect of our maritime vision. He gave us the direction. Anyway, and based on the strong foundation that he created, Bangladesh, under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, she has been last several years. We have been seeing huge initiatives and a lot of mega projects on the maritime sector. Okay, last 7-8 months, of course, for the pandemic, like all the other countries of the world, we can feel that there are impacts, but I'm sure we'll recover from there. But before that, about 8 to 10 years time, there have been a lot of projects. The special economic zones on the coastal belt. We had the offshore energy clusters, coastal power plants, the coastal infrastructures, industrial growth belts, and many other maritime infrastructures which were built. And why I'm mentioning that? Because all these development projects have a direct impact and a correlation with the climate change. Because we believe that the causes and effects of the climate change do not only concern the lives and livelihood of the coastal population, but the issues like the salinity intrusion, sea level rise, or global warming can have negative impact on the entire range of the development agenda a country can have. In this context, Bangladesh government has chalked out the Delta Plan 2100, as mentioned by our keynote speaker, Dr. Ainul Nishat, about the Delta Plan. And we know that we got the support of Netherlands institutions in formulating the Delta Plan issues. And I'll just make a quick mention about Delta Plan, another 2 or 3 words, because Delta Plan issue, that was actually, the concept puts focus on the management of the Ganges-Brahmaputra Delta, and which might impinge on our socioeconomic, the oceanographic, the agricultural, hydrological, and other climate-related factors. And Bangladesh Delta Plan is a strategic planning document for next 100 years that identifies and prioritizes actions to reduce the climate risk and the vulnerabilities. And few important challenges that I might mention, which I'm sure will come and will fare in our discussion later when the panelists will talk. Water management issue, Dr. Ainul Nishat has touched on that. And climate change adaptation, the sea level rise, protection against the storm surges from frequent and stronger cyclones, flood prevention, waterlogging in the cities. I think we'd also like to know something about that, why it is happening all the time. Is it only because of our poor civil works, or we have the problems of understanding what should be the level and the height of our embankments? And the extreme weather conditions also has been mentioned by our keynote speaker. So dear audience, we are aware about the global warming caused due to the unplanned industrialization, deforestation, and the emission of greenhouse gases. And as mentioned earlier, Bangladesh is unfortunately one of the most climate vulnerable countries in the world because of the tides, tidal bores, floods, and frequent tropical cyclones, droughts, and other natural causes, which really, result into irreparable loss in human lives and also the properties. And I read somewhere, some scientists have even mentioned that by 2050, perhaps 20% of our coastline, the coastal belt will be inundated now due to the climate change. So I'm not sure about the authenticity of that particular comment, but I have read it in a number of places. However, in order to reduce the impact of the climate change, a number of effective measures that has been taken by our government. And we have the National Steering Committee on Climate Change. Then we have the Climate Change Strategy and Action Plan 2009. So many other initiatives have been taken by the government, and I'm sure there are a robust mechanism. And we know that we have also developed quite a lot on the disaster management skill, because that is one thing we live day in, day out. So disaster management and mitigation skill, we have, we can proudly say that compared to 40, 50 years back, we are in much better position now to encounter the disaster management and cyclone and flood and all these things. Anyway, and we have also seen during the video that our Honorable Prime Minister has received in 2015 from United Nations Environmental Program about the Champion of the Earth award. And that is thanks to the wonderful initiatives and the progress that Bangladesh has made. Of course, we have made it with every efforts of everyone in Bangladesh, and also our friendly countries like Netherlands and many other countries who have always come forward to help us. Ladies and gentlemen, we are aware that many countries around the world are mapping a path towards a climate resilient environment, low greenhouse emissions in future. We don't want to get entangled with the global climate diplomacy, but we expect a positive outcome coming out from the developed and developing countries alike in future, especially as Dr. Ravinder Nishad mentioned about the COP26 summit next year in Glasgow. Irrespective of who wins in the election today. In this respect, we would like to hear more about the plan of having a carbon neutral European Union by 2050. I was just reading that, and we will be very, very inquisitive to hear from our friends from Netherlands about a carbon neutral European Union by 2050. So that is my advanced question to direct it to our Dutch speakers. Dear audience, we firmly believe that the human health and the quality of life greatly depends on the health of the surrounding ecosystem. So as such, the efforts of our university will continue in enriching our students and faculty about the vulnerability of the oceans, environment, and the climate change issues. And I hope that the faculty, students, and all the participants will be immensely benefited today from this webinar after the interactions with our keynote speaker and other speakers today. I once again thank His Excellency, Mr. Harry Varves, Dr. Anil Nishad, and all other learned speakers from home and abroad to share their thoughts and make this webinar meaningful. My appreciation to the moderator of this webinar, Admiral Anwar, and the organizers for their excellent support. I wish the webinar a grand success. Thank you very much. Assalamu
alaikum. Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor. Now is time to welcome our special guest and the Ambassador of Netherlands, His Excellency Mr. Harry Varves. Sir, we all are grateful for your gracious presence. Now we'd like to invite you to say a few words on this occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ambassador of Netherlands. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you all. Good morning for those who are in the Netherlands. I believe it's still morning in the Netherlands. I'm not quite sure, actually. Dear Mr. Vice Chancellor, dear Professor Nishad, Professor Islam, I saw in the list, and so many other important leaders and on climate in this country, academicians, civil servants, so many of those. So really, I really appreciate that you all participate in this program today. It is extremely important. I'm also very happy that my colleagues and fellow countrymen from the Netherlands are here as well. So it's an honor to be here today, and it's, I think, underlines the cooperation between Bangladesh and the Netherlands on topics like water management and climate adaptation. as this event is also jointly organized by the Maritime University and NUFFIC, a Netherlands, important Netherlands institutions. And we are pleased, the Netherlands is pleased, NUFFIC is pleased, we as Embassy are pleased to be associated with the Maritime University under the Orange Knowledge Program. This project for achieving sustainable solutions in the maritime and port sector in Bangladesh by strengthening the capacity of maritime universities through strategic multi-stakeholder partnership formation. Well, this is a mouthful, but it underlines the importance of the cooperation. We believe this will contribute to create space for higher education and research in port and the maritime sector in Bangladesh. In this context, allow me to express my heartfelt gratitude to Rear Admiral Khaled Iqbal, the Vice Chancellor of the University, for this project would not have been possible without his positive and energetic approach. A huge thanks and appreciation to you, sir, and your team for giving this project shape as you do. And I know as I understand, your last stretch in this position, but your university could not have had a better Vice Chancellor in you. So congratulations to the university and thank you very much. Apart from the Maritime University, the Netherlands is also working on several other projects in the port and maritime sectors, for instance, with Chittagong Port Authority, Para Port Authority, and the Bangladesh Navy. Recently, I have signed an agreement with the Maritime Affairs Unit of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to facilitate the implementation of a scoping study to explore the marine genetic resources in the Bay of Bengal. And these initiatives are illustrations of our commitments towards achieving the sustainable blue economy objectives of Bangladesh and the implementation of the Delta Plan 2100. So we are continuously engaged with local authorities to ensure long-term water and food security, economic growth and environmental sustainability, while reducing vulnerability to natural disasters and building resilience to climate change. So I'm happy to announce that the Netherlands will host the first ever global summit of world leaders focused entirely on climate adaptation. It will take place on the 25th of January 2021. The Honorable Prime Minister is one of the important invitees. The summit will be a state-of-the-art, climate-neutral virtual conference streamed worldwide over 24 hours with anchoring events from capitals around the world. The goal is think global and act local. So as we all know, ladies and gentlemen, climate change is our biggest threat we face, our huge challenge of mankind. And countries like the Netherlands and Bangladesh have a certain leadership role to play here. And this cooperation is born from that specific shared perspective. So we all know if you don't do anything and if you are inactive, the consequences will be grim. Several aspects of climate change and impact on Bangladesh and the region will be presented by the experts of today's webinar. And of course, Professor Nishat has already done so. And again, my apologies for not being able to participate at that time. And so please also accept my apologies for missing these the following presentations, as I'm bound to be back in a mandatory conference with headquarters, and everyone who knows how a diplomat makes career, that is never miss a mandatory conference with headquarters. So I do apologize for having to leave this meeting shortly. So once again, thank you very, very much for organizing this. Thank you for your energy, Mr. Vice Chancellor, and sending all of you my best wishes for the success of this conference. And I'm really looking forward to working with all of you in the near future. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency. It was wonderful to have you here, and we are very enlightened and also very happy to hear that so many projects are coming, especially in the maritime sector. And ladies and gentlemen, there are certain things I also came to know when I was working at the Chairman Chittagong Port. that since independence of Bangladesh 1971, Netherlands was the first country and the main country who were really giving us so much of assistance in the maritime sector, which is unbelievable. And normally it's not really come out so much, but I hope that it also should be known to all the people, especially in our Maritime University. Excellency, thank you very much once again for your time that you spare for us, and wish you a lot of luck and a lot of success in Bangladesh.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being among you. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time to listen to our guest speakers. And to start with, the speaker one is Dr. Alvaro Mirhao Samedo. So, Dr. Alvaro is a senior lecturer in the coastal oceanography in IHE del EFTE. He is going to enlighten us on the climate change in the Bay of Bengal region. And definitely is going to be extremely interesting from his perspective to listen to what he thinks about our area of interest. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Alvaro, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Admiral. Thank you very much also to the Maritime University and to Admiral Iqbal to organize this seminar together with IHE. I'm deeply honored to participate. So I will start sharing my screen. Hopefully you can see it. Can you please confirm that you can see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I will start and I will talk during the next 10 minutes. I will try to convey as much information as possible. So I will talk about climate change challenges in Bangladesh, but from a global perspective. I'm definitely not from the area, but I'm as a climate scientist. The area of the North Indian Ocean is an area that interests me quite a lot. So first of all, and mostly to our young students, climate and weather are different things. So we cannot mismatch these two concepts. So weather is the everyday state of the atmosphere, as we usually classify it, and climate, we can assume that it's the average weather. So we collect weather conditions across time, and then when we statistically treat it, we get climate. This is how we monitor climate, by measuring and statistically treat weather data. But what happens to climate? Well, climate changes. Climate is not a static entity. So climate changes across time. We already saw that one of the reasons why we saw on the short movie, one of the reasons that might induce climate change or changes in climate or climate variability is, for instance, small variations on the Earth orbit around the sun, also variations in sun activity, sunspots, sunstorms. It can induce variability in climate, but and this has been the reason for climate variability across time. But what if we change the relative composition of the atmosphere? So the atmosphere is a very thin layer of gas, of air, that surrounds our planet, and it's a very important part of the climate system. If we change the relative composition of the atmosphere, indeed we will induce what we call anthropogenic changes in climate. This is a very, very worrying and even frightening matter and a hot issue in our days. But this is where we are now. So we have here the CO2 concentration. Going back to the relative composition of the atmosphere. So what we have here is the CO2 concentration in parts per million in our atmosphere. And as we see, and this goes back to 800,000 years. And if we see in the recent days, we have a CO2 concentration in the atmosphere that we never had before. So this is a fact, and this is very, very, very worrying, even frightening, as I said before. What has been happening in terms of temperature? So in the most recent years, 2 centuries, if we go 2 centuries back, the temperature of the atmosphere, that's what we have here, temperature of the planet has been increasing. It has been increasing slowly, but steadily. And there is a relation between the greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere and the increase of greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere and the global increase of temperature. That's what we have here. So if we go back again, in this case, 8 million euros before, 800,000 years before. If we go back in time, in these 2 time series here, in these 2 time series, we have CO2 concentration and temperature, and we see that there is almost a perfect relation. Visually, we can easily see that there's almost a perfect relation between changes in temperature and changes in CO2 concentration. And the reason is because by changing the relative concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and greenhouse gases are CO2, methane, for example. If we change the relative composition of these gases in the atmosphere, we are increasing the so-called greenhouse gas effect, and by doing that, we are increasing the temperature of the planet. This is what's been happening in the recent years, 200 or 300 years back in time. This is the proof of what I've just been saying. So these are observed temperature trends. We've been measuring the temperature of the planet, what we have in this map on the right-hand side, and we can see on the warm colors, red and brown, we can see what has happened in roughly in 100 years. And we can see a steady increase of temperature, or a positive trend, with the exception of mid-North Atlantic around Iceland. All areas in the planet are faced with a positive trend in temperature. If you go on the graphs on the left-hand side, we also have an increase in temperature in the last 150 years. If we go more to the recent past, things get even more worrying. So 17 of the 18 warmest years since we have records occurred since 2000. So in the last 20 years, 17 out of 18 warmest years took place in these 2 decades. 2019 was the second warmest year since we have records, and actually in the 5 previous years were the warmest ever across the planet. So we have here in this map the difference between the 2019 temperature and the previous 20 years. 2081 to 2010. So all red colors mean that 2018 was definitely warmer than the 20 years from 1981 to 2010. This is how we monitor climate. So we have 1 year or 1 time slice, and then we compare it to previous years and see what has been happening. So 2019 was really warm. 2019 summer across Europe was the warmest summer ever. If you look careful, we are seeing temperatures in south Netherlands and west or east Belgium and across France, temperatures of the order of 40 degrees. That's really a lot. It was really, really, really troublesome, 2019. If you go more north, definitely far away from Bangladesh, but this has an impact. Across the entire globe. The ice cap in the Arctic Ocean has been literally disappearing in the last years. So usually, the ice cap area is related to the temperature. So when the northern hemisphere goes into winter, temperature decreases and sea ice forms. So when it's colder, the area of the sea ice cap increases. When it's warmer, the sea ice cap area is lower. What has been happening is, since there is an increase in temperature, the ice cap every year, the area of the ice cap every year is lower and lower. Usually the lowest area is around September, towards the end of the summer, northern hemisphere summer. And what we have here, if we see in this graph, this black plot, we can see that in each year, the September sea ice concentration is lower. What we have here are global changes in annual precipitation. This has a huge impact in the Bay of Bengal and specifically in Bangladesh. And what we can see here is the blue colors mean increase in precipitation, especially in extreme precipitation events, floods and flash floods. On the left-hand side map, we have changes changes in the last more than 100 years, and on the right-hand side, we have changes in the last 60 years, from 51 to 2010. In the last 50 years, the increase was even higher. And what you have here are occurrence of extreme events. We tend to relate climate change, specifically in present climate or present weather. We tend to relate extreme events, extreme weather events, to climate change. What we have in this graph is occurrence across the globe of extreme events, for example, extreme meteorological or hydrologic events, floods, tropical storms. And we can see that there is a clear trend from the last, in this case, from 1980 until 2014. We can see a clear trend, a clear increase in the occurrence of extreme events across the entire globe. And here, this is quite troublesome, especially for low-lying countries like Bangladesh. What we have here is the global sea level change. And remember, I'm talking about present climate, so monitoring of what has been happening in the recent past. So in the last 100 years, there is a clear trend in terms of sea level rise. And if we go to the right-hand side, in the last 30 years, this trend is even higher. So there is almost an exponential trend in sea level rise. And this is, of course, related not to sea ice melting, but related to land, sea, and ice coverage melting of ice. This is what we've been observing in the last more than 100 years. So this is the world we live in. So the warming of the climate system is unequivocal, and since 60 or 70 years, many of the observed changes are unprecedented over decades of millennia. We've never seen anything like this. So the atmosphere and the ocean have warmed. We have been monitoring and observing this, and the amounts of snow and ice have diminished. And the consequences that sea level has risen and the concentration of greenhouse gases have increased. So these two statements from the IPCC report in 2013 sum up what I call here the world we live in. So what about Bangladesh? So Bangladesh is extremly vulnerable to climate change. Delta country, the entire country is almost a delta. Very low altitude, so it's extremely vulnerable to climate change. By 2050, 1 in every 7 people in Bangladesh will be displaced by climate change, which means up to 18 million people may have to move due to just to sea level rise. Bangladesh has been experienced an increase in floods and flash floods. So 80% of the total area of the country is prone to flooding. There has been an increase in cyclone frequency related to the extreme events that I just mentioned, and also an increase in storm surges by the coast. There has been an increase in salinity intrusion, which causes a huge problem in agriculture around the coast. Actually, the entire coastal belt along the Bay of Bengal is experiencing salinity problems. But there is also, I mentioned, an increase in flash floods and in precipitation. But on the other hand, there is also potential for extreme temperature and drought, mostly in the north part of the country.
Dr. Alvaro, we need another 2 minutes, please.
I will finish in 2 minutes, Admiral. So what we have here are the time tiers of sea level rise that I mentioned before. And since sea level rise is one of the most striking parameters in Bangladesh, I expect to show this slide. So what we have here are increases in sea level rise, observed sea level rise from remote sensing in the last decades. And again, there's a steady positive trend that we can see in Bengal. This black circle. Another issue around the Bay of Bengal is the coral bleaching. Coral bleaching happens due to increase of sea surface temperature, or the increase of the ocean temperature. And what we see in these 4 maps is the decadal changes of sea surface temperature around Bay of Bengal or around India. There is a steady increase in the ocean temperature leading to the death of the coral reefs and the coral bleaching. This has a strong impact on the fisheries and on the fishing economy of Bangladesh. So what about the future? This slide is a bit cumbersome. So how can we? So if we forecast weather, how can we forecast climate? We cannot do that. So we use a technique which we call projected climate changes. So we build up scenarios for greenhouse gas concentrations, and we use models, sophisticated models, to project climate changes based on these scenarios. We have 2 scenarios here. It's the code, they are called RCP 2.6 and 8.5, and we have in the top maps projected increases towards the end of the 21st century in temperature. So the increases in temperature will happen regardless of a very optimistic scenario, which is the one on the left, or a very pessimistic scenario, which is the one on the right. And in the lower part, we have changes in average precipitation also towards the end of the 21st century, and we see an increase, or at least a shuffle in the precipitation pattern, with an increase around a slight increase around the Bay of Bengal. And this is my last slide. So these are projections for sea level rise. Actually, I still have 1 slide more. So these are projections for sea level rise for different greenhouse gas concentrations. For the ones on the map are the 2 extreme scenarios that I just mentioned, one optimistic and one pessimistic. So we can have increases in global mean sea level rise up to 1 meter if we look at most pessimistic scenarios. So this is really worrying. And I mean projection. These are projections towards the end of the 21st century. So if we go even longer, if we maintain these trends, what will happen in 300 years' time? Of course, a lot can change, and these are just projections. But we can have increase if we don't do anything and we keep business as usual, as we have here in the red scenario. Can have increases in the sea level, in the global mean sea level of the order of 3.5 meters. And I imagine what would happen to a country as Bangladesh could basically disappear, it would be completely flooded. Thank you very much. I understand I overcame slightly my time. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alvaro. I think your No, we have been really waiting to listen to you from your perspective on our area of concern. I think that and you have raised a lot of important points that we can discuss in our discussion session. Ladies and gentlemen, now our next speaker is Dr. Muhammad Nazrul Islam, and he is going to Dr. Muhammad Nazrul Islam, and he is a professor of Department of Geography and Environment in the Jahangirnagar University, and he is going to speak on us on modeling on water, food, and energy. I say again, water, food, and energy nexus in the Bay of Bengal region and challenges for strengthening the blue economy in Bangladesh. Looks a very fascinating topic. Dr. Nazrul, you have 10 minutes to start with. The floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, dear moderator and respected Vice Chancellor and Honorable Ambassador of Netherlands, His Excellency. And thank you very much for the scientists from all over the world. Good afternoon for Bangladesh and other countries, maybe especially Netherlands, with a good morning. And I'm going to start. I will conclude maybe within 10 minutes. My focus is my study focus is very complicated. Water, food, energy nexus in Bay of Bengal region is very, very important because due to the climate change, we are discussing about the many regions. So monster of climate change, we in the current years, the important is the monster of the climate change. Sometimes climate is changing, sometimes climate is anomalies. So two types of scientists are debating this situation. Some scientists told the climate is changing, and today, Indonesia sir mentioned that today's US election, President Donald Trump, he also believed that the climate is anomalies, and some scientists believe that climate is changing. So this type of monster, as you see that the uncertainty is important. So if we would like to predict the climate change in future, many uncertainties will become here. And also, if we feed the model, we would like to predict the model for the future climate change. Of course, we have to set some model. So this is important. In my case, I am trying to fit some model, food, water nexus in energy nexus in this Bay of Bengal region. If we consider the first scenarios, the global 100 years is nothing by the geological time scale. But if we consider the 1 degree centigrade in temperature is increasing, what will be happened in the globe and what will be happened in Bangladesh and what will be happened in Netherlands. So Netherlands and Bangladesh scenario is almost similar. So this is our concern. The climate is changing, global is warming, ice is melting. This is our very concern to how can we predict this, how can we measure this, and how can we survive this, and how can we mitigate and adapt this situation. This is our concern. And many already Almiro analyzes this slide, how can we predict the future climate change? Because many debates, some scientists told could be responsible for aerosol, some scientists told could be responsible for anthropogenic impact, some scientists are telling to interest the greenhouse gases. Many scientists told today also, Indonesia sir, the keynote speaker is mentioned the greenhouse emission is important for the global climate change. But importance is we have to measure what type of impact come from the aerosol and what type of impact come from the greenhouse gases and what type of impact is coming total anthropogenic impact. That is the impact. How what type of impact comes from the anthropogenic? This is our very concern to mitigate and adapt this climate change. So this is the climate change and local Bay of Bengal region area. You can see here the big country is India, and also the China is here, and Bangladesh and Myanmar and Bay of Bengal, and here is Sri Lanka and Maldives. You can see the Bay of Bengal and is very coastal area in Bangladesh. So it's also our concern is all of the Bay of Bengal region is very concerned about the water, because many problem is crisis is coming to the water related problem, and also projected temperature and precipitation is precipitation. You can see the December, January, and February. If we predict by the couple model intercomparison project, and it is see that the December, January, February, and June, July, August, temperature is a little bit shows some discrepancy in this here. So, Bay of Bengal area is vulnerable, and many sector is risk, especially the sea level rising and salinity intrusion. We can say from this data set. So, this is the annual mean temperature and annual mean precipitation. You can see this area, North Bengal, and this west part area, Bangladesh's temperature is high, and also precipitation is low this area. So this figure shows that the Bangladesh part of the Bangladesh is very concerned about the global warming and climate change. And you can see the figure is here. And another concern you can see here, some figures of winter rainfall and winter temperature, pre-monsoon temperature, and pre-monsoon and monsoon rainfall and monsoon temperature. If we summarize this figure, we can see that the regional in Bangladesh, inside the Bangladesh also regional have some climatic and climatic variations and temperature and rainfall variation. This is our also local concern and local climatic thinking. We have to adapt, or we have to plan some mitigation measures to this local, especially the coastal districts, 17 coastal districts. Our concern is very we need to make some concern to this area. Especially this figure shows that the monthly average temperature precipitation in the coastal districts, we can see that some figures shows the discrepancy. I will not go to details. And important thing is that month-to-month variability in ERA, 40 regression analysis in Bay of Bengal. This figure is a little bit complicated. You know, the CRU temperature. This is the climatic research unit, a data set derived directly from monthly station data, and European Union analysis, the 40 ERA data. If we compare these two data, the Bangladesh climatic change fitting the very well and shows the irrigation model is fitting very well, and irrigation shows that the relationship is 0.9, a high degree significant. So this shows that the global warming and climate change impact is very vulnerable and risk in our country, especially the coastal zones and North Bengal, northern region of Bangladesh. And also, if we see that the comparison of mean error and RMSE error, this data also shows that the before the 70 or 80, this fluctuation was low, but now is the global warming and climate change data shows that the Bangladesh is going to be in trouble in near future due to the water crisis or food crisis or energy crisis. That is my concern. The water, food, energy nexus need to be addressed in near future in this kind of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Maritime University or other public university or research organization could be addressed water, food nexus in Bangladesh. And climate change, many concern we are discussed. I will not go to detail here. I am discussing these important issues because the increasing population in Asia, 1/3 all population here, but problem is that pollution and eutrophication is water is important, and important thing is harmful algae bloom is all about the freshwater and aquatic ecosystem and also the marine ecosystem. This phenomena shows that the Quarters India, 24 May 2016 mentioned that World War III could be occurred in Asia due to water crisis in South Asia or Asian region. This is our concern, why we should be addressed to the water, food, energy nexus in Bay of Bengal region. And also the former United Nations General Secretary Kofi Annan also said same in the 2007 in his speech, the world and water and food could be the crisis in Asia in near future. So global water resource already you know and already mentioned many researchers. I will not go detail. My concern is there. The nexus, the perspectives is water, food, and energy. And if you are create to fresh water in very limited in our country. Also, the aquatic wetland is degrading and destroying by using the human interference, and also the food production need to be the irrigation process, and agricultural sector needs much water, and energy also need some water, and this linkage is important with the nexus: governance, environment, and climate change. This is the impact of the nexus level, value level. What we must and should do, ethics and philosophy. What type of value we should use the water, food, and energy. And normative level, what we want to do, planning, law and politics. Already Bangladesh government takes some initiatives, NAPA, and many initiative takings to minimize this climate change adaptation and mitigation, and also decrease the water quality, deteriorating and water quality, reserving many policy already taking, but this is not enough well. So we have to think about this resource, because in our country, if you see this scenario here, global water use domestic purpose is 80%, but in case of Bangladesh, the global use 8%, Bangladesh 12%, industry 23%, but Bangladesh is 2%. Agricultural sector is 86%. That is the concern. Bay of Bengal region, like Bangladesh, India, Maldives, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. This region is very important for water resources for irrigation purpose in agricultural sector. That is the reason this figure shows that. If you see that, the figure, yes.
So, Dr. Nozrul, you have to finish in 1 minute time.
Okay. So I'm showing that the time is very short. So I'm showing on things. The many people shows that the Bay of Bengal is affected by many disasters. So this type of disaster is coming, so our coast is vulnerable. That is one of the reason we cannot produce the seafood from the artificial way, or we cannot cultivate the technological development we need to have, because we protect this disaster, and we need to be concerned about the seafood production to enhance the blue economy. That is my concern. So I'm going to finish because time is very short. Maybe I should stop here. So thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nozrul, sir. I think you have brought in a lot of very important and very pertinent points. And one of the important point is that one of the great philosophers of Dhaka University says that the God Almighty has bestowed Bangladesh with two excellent things. One is human resources and another is water resources. And water resources is so important that, but still we are now drinking bottled water. Anyway, I think your talk is very pertinent, and I'm sure there will be a lot of questions will be coming up in the discussion session, and we'll have great discussion sessions, and we will definitely share these slides with all the audience in future. Ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to listen to Dr. Ali Dastagir, and he is a senior lecturer in coastal engineering and port development in IIT Delhi, and he is going to speak on assessing the risk of climate change in port, which is and it looks to be a very important subject, since port is a very important hub for all the economies. So, Dr. Ali, I think your time starts now. You have 10 minutes time to present your paper. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. Can you confirm that you see my screen?
Yeah, sure, you're okay.
Okay. Admiral Iqbal, Professor Nishat, colleagues, and students of the Maritime University, I'm very happy that I'm with you in this webinar. Of course, this webinar for us is a part of a NUFFIC project that we have together with the Maritime University of Bangladesh, together my colleagues from STC Group in Netherlands and SINOP, who is leading this project from the Dutch side. I want to look at the different aspects of climate change, and this is the effect of and risk that climate change will have in port. This is more or less what I want to discuss in the short time that I have. I want to discuss why we need to do this risk assessment. I want to discuss what is at risk. I want to look at the aspects of climate change which are important in port. And I want to look at the impact of the climate change on port and give some guideline about developing risk assessment. But it is very important that we distinguish in our discussion between adaptation and mitigation. Because we know that the climate is changing. We have seen in previous lectures that the climate is changing. Of course, there are a lot of efforts, such as a Paris Agreement and so forth, to reduce the climate change, to mitigate the climate change. But anyway, even if they are successful, the climate change that is happening will continue for some time. And we need to adapt our life, our livelihood, and our economy to this new situation. This part, I want to focus in this part. So I want to talk more about adaptation of the ports rather than mitigation that we can do in our ports. But why are we doing this? Because the ports plays a numerous role in the economy of a country and a community, and it have cascade of effects on the economy. Because, for example, if the works cannot operate as they used to, it will have a direct effect also on the job that they offer, on the cargo transport that's important for the country. And it is very important that the operation of the port and the support vehicle and passenger and cargo is not interrupted. Otherwise, we will have a problem in the whole country. And historically, all the ports are either in rivers or coastlines and are very lowland areas. So they are very much vulnerable to effects of climate change that Professor Nishat Alvaro and other colleagues have mentioned about them. And they are always planned for a very long time. So we don't want our port to be disoperational after 10, 20 years. We make ports, we plan ports for 100 or 50 years in the future. So that's important to know the effect of climate change there. But very importantly, Bangladesh is a maritime country. So maritime country means a country that has quite a number of ports. You can see I have listed the main seaports of Bangladesh here. We have Port of Chittagong, we have Port of Mongla, we have plans in Bangladesh for the development of Port of Pyra in a very big port by 2020. And there are also other ports in planning. So when we have ports and when we are planning new ports, we should not forget to check them for climate change, make them climate change proof. But despite the fact that the climate change has not got into its worst situation, from time to time we see these type of news in the newspaper. For example, during the cyclone of Amphan, the operation of Chittagong port was halted for some time. Yeah? So this is clearly we see the effect of climate change in ports. And by the studies and the projects that are being carried out in Bangladesh, some of these problems are being addressed. For example, Bangladesh is now working on the Delta Plan 2.0 for development, as well as how to fund and how to finance the climate change adaptation in different projects. So although we are in the right way in Bangladesh, like in many other countries, but we may be a bit behind of the climate change. But let's now look in what is at risk in the port. At port, a lot of things are at risk. For example, the assets are at risk. So the major assets of the port, such as roads, such as cranes, terminals, they are pretty much at risk. But also the support structures, such as buildings, offices, drainages that we have, energy infrastructure, communication facilities, they are also potentially at risk of climate change. This is the risk to assets, but our operation is also pretty much risky because the transport of electricity and transport of cargo also will be at risk because of climate change. I will show a lot of examples of these risks later in my presentation. Major storms are reducing the productivity of outdoor workers. When you are working outdoor, like a lot of workers on the ports, if you have major rainfall or major storm, then you cannot work and you need to stop. So these are problems that we have. Also, when the temperature is very high, then maybe people outside cannot work. The other problems that, the other issues that are risk is the fact that ports is in the middle of a long chain of transport. And these critical dependencies are important. If the port doesn't work, then the supply chain will collapse. And then the whole country, the national economy of the country will be in trouble and at risk. And also, when we are moving more towards future and climate change has its effects and impacts, then the insurers may also start thinking about, shall we insure the ports, how we should insure the ports. So the whole insurance and capital market also will change in a very different way that we are talking about now. But the climate change aspects that I want to give examples here, I have distributed in these in these four categories. So an increase in the severity of cyclones, storm and extreme weather events, changes to rainfall and patterns, increasing temperatures and sea level rise. We have seen all these in the previous presentations, how they change globally and in the context of Bay of Bengal and country of Bangladesh. But each of these parameters that are changing will have potential effect in the coastal zones and rivers which port are located. So, for example, an increase in severity of cyclones will also increase the wave events, increase the flood, may increase the erosion. Increasing temperature may increase the hot days. Sea level rise will cause more frequent erosion and again, maybe permanent flooding of some areas. Yeah? So these are the effects that we can see on the coastal zones. These are the potential effects. But when these potential effects happens in the coastal zone or estuary or river that has port, there will have a direct impact on the port. For example, if we have increased erosion, storm surge, and flooding events, then ports may look like something that you can see in this picture. Actually, this is a real picture from an Indonesian port during a flood. So you can see how it can hinder the operation of a port if a port is temporary or permanently flooded. It can also increase the maintenance and repair cost because of the flooding. It can also increase the likelihood of power outages due to flooding, and the electrical facilities may be in trouble. There's a long list of it. If when you receive the presentation, you can read about it, but this is an example of what will happen if floods are more frequent. Increase in the wind effects. Wind also will have effect on the operation of the port quite a lot. Not only the operation of the cranes and loading and unloading, but also the navigation and other aspects of the port. If you look at the video that I want to show now, I hope that quickly you see that, you can see what has happened in a container terminal in China during a wind event. You can see that the containers, most of them fortunately empty, they have fallen down in the terminal. You can see how much cost it has to clear everything out and how much hindrance we have in the operation of the port here. Another example of wind is here. This is the port of Mumbai in India, not the other side of of course, the Indian peninsula, but you can see that during the wind, a crane has crashed. When we see the more events, then our operation will be also on more risk. You can see how wind has crashed and crane at the berth and has reduced the operation quite a lot. Again, if you, for example, if we have more cyclones and more storms, we may have increase in lighting events, and increasing in lighting events also will damage our electrical facilities and communicational facilities, and it may halt the work of a port. As an example, you can see what has happened to this cruise ship, that the whole lighting system of the cruise ship, because of the lighting, is damaged completely. I think this has happened in Italy last year. Again, other examples of this, the effect of climate change is increase in drought and rainy season and fogs. You can see that if we have more foggy days in our port, the navigation will be more difficult. Again, drought and rainy season may also have effect on the water resources of the port, and port cannot have its resources, water resources anymore, and we need to think about providing more water from different sources to the port. There are a lot of different impacts that we can have in the port. Another example is increase in the very hot days and heat waves. If we have hot waves, we usually also need heat waves and hot days. We also usually need to pay more for cost of energy because we need to cool down our offices. We need to cool down our workers, our storage areas. And even if we have more increase in hot days, we may also need to reduce our the shifts because people cannot work really in very hot days, and we run the risk of reduced productivity in the port. If we have jungles around our port like mangroves and we have bushfire there, then that also has risk to the port. And if the temperature is going up, the water and air temperature generally goes up. As Professor Nishat was mentioning, the biological and ecological things also will change, and we may have new type of pests that may harm our ships in the port. So again, we need to also look into that. And then when we have higher sea level rise and higher storms, then the impact of waves in the port also will be different. So if we have designed our port for a certain wave height or certain forcing of cyclones, if the cyclones gets bigger and bigger, then we may lose the structure or the infrastructure of our port. So these are all the impacts that we can envisage in ports all around the world because of climate change. But we need to do a risk assessment. Yeah. So this is a short guideline about the risk assessment, how we do
Dr.
that.
Ali, in 2 minutes, please.
Okay, sure. So the risk assessment usually has, we are going in 3 different levels. We have a first pass, second pass, and third pass. In the first pass, we only do a desk study. We look at all the data that we have. We look into different aspects of it, and it is to understand the uncertainties around the timing and location of climate change. But when we have, usually this is not costly. When we have done that, we go to the second phase, which focuses on specific systems and sectors such as ports and identifying what is at risk. This is a bit more expensive, and in the third part, we go using a lot of modeling and do very detailed analysis of our complex system, such as port. This is usually much costly and take a lot of time. But it is important that whatever we want to do, we need to build scenarios. These scenarios, we do it with the help of scientists like my colleagues, like Alvaro and other colleagues who talked about it, that we need to somehow project the future for like 2100 and 2050, not only for loads and local effects of temperature, rainfall, relative sea level rise, wave and surge, that they can help, but also we need to look at the future plans of the port, what type of plans we have for the future of different ports or new ports, because the other part of the equation of risk is what we have. And then we need to look at the likelihood of the hazard, how likelihood is that we have a high temperature or high wave or high sea level rise, and what is the effect of that in our port? So the consequence of these changes in our port. We can divide the consequence into catastrophic, major, moderate, minor, or insignificant. And using these, we can develop a risk, what we call it a risk map. What is a risk map? Risk map is a matrix like this for likelihood of the hazard. So is it very likely, or is it possible, it's unlikely, or it is rare? Or the consequence, insignificant, minor, moderate, major, and catastrophic. So if we have a hazard which is almost certain, and the consequence is catastrophic, this is the extreme, the very, very extreme risk that we have. And we need to act quickly on that. On the other hand, if we have a hazard which is rare and is the consequence is insignificant, so it doesn't do any harm to us, this is very low. If we have this risk map, then we start thinking about taking action and identifying options for building resilience and adaptation. So we need to identify things and adopt our port to the future. But I think the adaptation is a big topic for another talk if I have time for in the new webinars. Thank you. And back to Mr. Moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ali. I think it was an excellent one, reminder for us, on the practical aspects of the impact of this severe weather due to the climate change, particularly for us, for the Bangladesh, as we are now developing our Paira port, or Matarbari port, Bay Terminal, as well as trying to moderate or modernize the Chittagong port and Mongla port system. And these are the events that you have raised, the point you have really raised. I think the mariners and also the seafarers like us, in the last 15, 20 years, we have really experienced such things and seen such things. Thank you very much once again. An excellent talk. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have Dr. A.K.M. Saiful Islam. And he is going to speak on the projected change of inundation pattern of the tropical cyclones, the Bay of Bengal, under different sea level conditions. And Dr. Saiful Islam is a professor at the Institute of Water and Flood Management of Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology, in short, Kuwait. Sir, if you are ready, all is yours, sir. You have 10 minutes time.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me clearly, right? Yes?
You are loud and clear. You are loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. First, I'd like to give a very big, I think, congratulations and my best wishes for organizing such an important event of how climate change impact, particularly our coastal Bangladesh. And we also heard from our keynote speaker, respected teacher, also my teacher, Professor Ainul Nishad sir, with so many aspects that coastal area is going to be affected, even, not only coastal area in Bangladesh going to face, and we are also already made a Bangladesh Delta Plan and also Bangladesh Climate Change Strategy Action Plan, National Adaptation programs we are updating. So all this actually going to build our resilience to fight with the climate change. We also heard from Ambassador His Excellency that how Netherlands can help Bangladesh to build this resilience. I'm not going to details on the speaker, maybe question answer session we can discuss on the more questions on that. But I am going to open my presentation. So let me share my screen. Yeah. Okay, so maybe you can see my presentation slides, yeah? Okay.
Yes, please, sir, no problem.
Okay, thank you so much. My presentation is on the coastal inundation pattern that we are expected to change if different sea level condition that are possible sea level rise condition in the future. First, I start with the cyclone Amphan, which we have see the landfall on May 20th of this year. This is a super cyclone. We call it a super cyclone when wind speed is more than 220 kilometers per hour, and this one has a 3-minute sustained wind speed is 240 kilometers per hour, and it created a lot of damages. But we are very fortunate that it's not directly landfall on Bangladesh, but our neighboring country, India. In West Bengal, it landfalls. It's part of the Sundarban also affected. And the next slide, you can see that the storm surge that caused by cyclone Amphan. You can see that most of the storm surge height here, you can see over the Sundarban area was much higher, considering our Khulna, Satkhira, Bagherat, and other areas. And the maximum height of the surge 3.5 to 4 meters. So the tracks is very important where the cyclone is actually landfall. But still, it is not harmless. It has damages many coastal embankments, which we call polders, and also trees, houses, and many areas was inundated. So any cyclone is a bad news for the country. Even though Bangladesh is now a role model for saving lives and tackling disaster, particularly cyclone. We have around 60,000 coastal volunteers working, and we have also this time we opened around 14,000 shelters, which is temporary shelters. We have around 4,000 shelters, but additional temporary shelter to manage under COVID-19 situation. But we cannot avoid the damage, and the situation is here. If you have a look how cyclone is evolved over the years. If I take a look of the Bola cyclone, where 300 to 500,000 people are died, 86 million worth of damage occurred in 1970. Then 1990 91 cyclone we have in 24 to 30 April. This is dissipated, but still it was killed about 138,000 people. So if we consider the next cyclone is Cedar, where the fatality is reduced to 3,447, but the damage is not. You can see 2.31 billion of this cyclone damage. If we consider the next cyclone, which is Island 2009. Then we see a number of cyclones that Professor Nishad also said that we are seeing the DCR cyclone Amphan, and also last year in November cyclone Bulbul, and then Fani, and in 2019 April, and Mora in 2017, and 2016 cyclone Ron. So we see the depression, even like now we have a low pressure system in the Bay of Bengal. So that why this cyclone and storm surge is more frequent or more intense or forming in the Bay of Bengal. If we take a look of the cyclone track, these are the historic cyclone track. The ideal sea surface temperature is around 25 to 27 degree centigrade to form a cyclone, and Bay of Bengal actually relatively warmer than the Arabian Sea. And the relatively lower vertical wind shear, which actually give a environment to form the cyclone, particularly in pre-monsoon and post-monsoon season. And there is additional moisture come from South Tennessee, and the terrain is very flat. Previous speakers, guest speakers also mentioned that terrain is very flat, and which actually is not blocking for city of the wind. And that already mentioned by our keynote speaker and others, that sea surface temperature is increasing. Globally, it's increased at a rate of 0.1 per degree centigrade per decade. That means we have already observed 1 degree of global warming. So what has happened? I will not go details because I saw the other speaker detailed mention that from since 1980 and others, and even since 1750 actually, from pre-industrial period, the greenhouse gas emission, particularly carbon dioxide and other minor gas, is increasing, and that actually rise the temperature. If we had a look, I saw that other speaker already showed that we are now in a curve which is 413 parts per million CO2 in the atmosphere. So that actually worrisome, because in the last 800,000 years, they never crossed 300 ppm CO2 emission. And the projections here, if you see, if we continue like that, this is different scenario. The worst scenario is RCP 8.5. Also, the sustainable is RCP 2.6. Will be increasing a lot, and then temperature could be. Professor Nisha said it could be go 3 or above, even if we follow the path of the Paris Agreement. But if we do not do anything, and then we also know about the U.S. election that U.S. is now pulling out from Paris Agreement. What is the result of that election? Despite that, we are heading towards a dangerous path of global emission, and that will be actually increasing. Some places actually in the world could have be 5 degree or more, and that what that causes. That this is emission scenario, this is temperature rise, and some extreme scenario says it could rise around 10 degree or more. And then that will actually, Arctic sea ice is actually melting, and this is the Arctic sea ice boundary in 1979, and this is 220 figure. We are seeing constantly Arctic ice is melting. And that already previous speaker mentioned, it is not only the rise in global temperature. This is a report published last year that's on the special report on ocean and cryosphere. That's the serious challenge from the global warming, because not only the rising of the air temperature, but also rising of the mean surface temperature and also the ocean temperature. We also see that marine heat wave days, which is consecutive 5 days when the temperature is above the 19th percentile. So that marine heat wave day actually killing the corals, and that we already see. Another speaker, guest speaker, showed that the coral will be diminished if temperature is more than 1.5 degrees. We also see that ocean pH, that Professor Nishat said that ocean pH is increasing because of the increasing of the carbon dioxide absorption by the ocean, and then it became more and more acidic. And we also see because of the more stratification, the less circulation, and that depleted the ocean oxygen, and then more hyperoxene zone is going to be created. We also see the Arctic ice is going to be depleted. And these are the projections that it will be, summer will be more on ice free in September if we continue emission like that. And this is the sea level rise. Not only sea level rise, we also see the Greenland ice sheet is melting, the loss of Antarctic ice sheet. We also see glacier mass is melting, and all contributing to the sea level rise and also thermal expansion. We also see that permafrost, which is ice beneath the surface, that also melting. And this is a projection very recently produced by art project by UK Met Office Hadley Center, and there are 20 stations in the Bay of Bengal. And if you see the projections from RCP 2.6, 4.5, and also RCP 8.5 projections, and if you have a look at the changes, you see that maximum could be 0.91 meter, which means 90 centimeter, without considering any other factor like subsidence and others. I will show another publication recently published that shows subsidence rate. If we add with that, will be additional 5 centimeter will be additional sea level rise projections. And this is the study that we are doing with funding from Department of Environment, the satellite altimetry data, and that we already submitted our draft final report. You see the global satellite altimetry say the global trend of sea level rise is around 3.1 millimeter, and we saw another guest speaker showed that the rise of the trend is if you consider last 10 to 15 years, it is around 4 millimeter per year. And then if we consider satellite altimetry, we see there is a spatial variation, even though the mean could be 3 millimeter per year, that is 0.3 meter per 100 year, but there is a spatial variation, and Bangladesh coast would have already experiences 4 to 6 millimeter rise of the sea level. And that's actually continue, and additional warming will increase because additional thermal expansion process will be added with this sea level rise condition. And if
Dr. Saiful, 1 minute, please. You got another 1 minute to finish.
Oh, can I get another 2 minutes because I have more. Okay, thank you. This is the subsidence. If you have a look at the subsidence rate, it's very high in many places, like 7 millimeter per year. This is a publication in PNAS by Melanie Becker, and if we add this additional subsidence, we could have 1.5 meter sea level rise. The coastal modeling that we are running, it is a Delphi, which is another Delta RAS. It's a DAS institute that we are using. It's an open source model. A student can use this, and we are treating it for the Bay of Bengal. This is the mesh. This is the bathymetry. We use JEPCO and others, Bangladesh Navy data and waterboard data. And we also calibrate the model at different stations with the complex error. The result shows if we, without considering any other improvement of coastal polder, we might have, if we have a 0.5 meter sea level rise, we could have some percentage area is underwater. It's not 1/3, but it could be, if we have a 1 meter sea level rise, it's 3.8% of area will be underwater. If we do not increase our polder height or other consideration, and it affects 6 billion people. And the most important effect will be Sundarban, which is not polder protected. 1 meter sea level rise will cause 42% of Sundarban underwater. And this is a simulation by Cyclone Roanu. I quickly go through. This is the atmospheric condition in wind and mean sea level pressure. And if we simulate, we see that it will go up to 2 meter surge. And if we consider sea level rise condition with without cyclonic sea level rise condition, that's 0.46 and affected 0.52 million people. But with the increase of the sea level rise, 1 meter sea level rise condition, it will affect actually 5.3% country and 6 billion people. And this is additional simulation we did with Cyclone Cedar and Roanu. We found that more sea level rise condition will consider more effect of the country. You can see my PowerPoint presentation details and also the publication of Rahman that already there. And last thing I would like to mention, we are running now all the historic cyclone under a project called Oasis, 12 cyclone, and these cyclones over the Bay of Bengal, and very high resolution model, 1.5 kilometer and 4 kilometer simulations. And all the results will be published in Oasis Hub. So it's open source. So already Met Office published all the cyclone results, atmospheric condition, but we are producing the storm stars. So you can find there. These are some of the publications, and that's all my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. I hope and pray, I wish that when we used to serve with the fleet, we could have had access to all these beautiful research findings. But I'm sure that our future generation is going to make the best use of it and do good for the to avoid the cyclone or to mitigate its effect. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the fag end of our webinar. We have our last guest speaker, Dr. Mujibur Rahman. And he is the Director General of in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, looking after the legal affairs. And he's going to speak on the government policy on the climate change on these relevant on these issues. So, without further ado, may I invite Dr. Mujibur Rahman to take over the floor, please. Dr. Mujibur Rahman, you got 10 minutes to present your paper. Dr. Masum, you're there?
We can hear you, Dr. Masum. Yeah.
Okay. We can't hear you. আমরা শুনতে পাচ্ছি না। We can't hear you. এটা unmute করতে হবে মনে হয়, একটু দেখেন।
Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's fine.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. I think it's a long time we are discussing over the issues, climate change challenges. Bay of Bengal, and I should say over the region, I should say, global aspect we have. And honorable speaker, special, I should mention all the speakers, they talked and shared their views very nicely. I'm paying my deep regards to Nishat sir, maybe he is here till now, though it's long time, sir. And also to Honorable Vice Chancellor, Maritime University. And I don't like to mention as the time is very much constrained. So I don't have any sort of PowerPoint presentation. I like to discuss over these issues as I learned from the speakers. Climate change is a hot cake issue, no doubt, all over the world. As Nishat sir told, what is happening today? What will be the result today? US result. Trump will be coming. It's a big question. And then, as it is I should say, academic discussion, so we may open our heart and we can discuss over these issues. So what will be the fate of Paris Agreement, climate change aspects all over the world? What will be our next initiative? This could be a very good agenda for discussion. But today's agenda is, we know that challenges of Bangladesh regarding climate change. So it's a very, I should say, very big issue. Technical aspect is already covered by our professor from Netherlands and from Buet, Janginagar University. They discussed a lot of things regarding technical aspects. They covered, I should say, and I like to convey my heartfelt thanks regarding technical aspect. What is climate change, impact of climate change, how we can address this. So many things are there. I think the listeners, especially the students who are listening very minutely and attentively, they have so many questions in their mind, and we need to address them. Already, if we look towards the chat box, there are about 28 questions are there, and I will be requesting all the panelists and our learned panel, they will be look over their question. Now I like to draw your kind attention few agenda. As you know that Bangladesh already few days earlier, our government has taken a very big initiative in our parliament that you are aware, I think. Bangladesh parliament passed a motion that is declaring climate change a planetary emergency, which is really significant in this region, I should say. All over the world, if we make comparison, Britain, France, Canada, Portugal, and Argentina, I think they declared their state as a climate emergency. And in this region, in Asia or after that, Bangladesh is most important regarding these issues that our Honorable Prime Minister, she took it very seriously, and she achieved, as our Vice Chancellor mentioned that, she already showed her commitment to address the climate change issues as we are most vulnerable country all over the world. So this is the, as moderator told, that what is the government, how the government is addressing these issues, climate change aspect. And globally, no doubt Bangladesh is now addressing and participating all the aspects of climate change issues. And very nicely, we are now in a position to explore that Bangladesh is not in a only a developing country. We are also maybe to guide other people, other countries to follow us regarding how to combat the challenges of climate change aspects. Because we have, we have the SOD. Especially, I like to draw kind attention to our Nishat sir, sir. In the year 2009, from the Ministry Disaster Management, we developed our standard order on disaster, how to address the disaster. And coastal area people, they are facing all that. So many disaster management example we have, and how to address it. We have which people will be doing what during disaster time. We call it one kind of Bible. So it's a matter of pride for us that we are facing, and we are managing this sort of disaster in our country following this manual. Now I like to draw your attention towards South Asia region. Not only Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, this South Asia is, we are facing huge challenge economically, environmentally, from this climate change aspect. So I will be drawing your kind attention how this challenge could be mitigated. It is a big question. If we think about the temperature rising, it's really alarming, I should say. One of our discussions he discussed regarding the IPCC report. We know that a warming trend of about 0.75 degrees Celsius has been observed in annual mean temperature in South Asia over the past century. And with these circumstances, if we compare between 90 and 2008, over 750 million people in South Asia were affected by this disaster. And natural disaster is there, man-made disaster is there, and resulting, this is surprising statistics, about 230,000 casualties took place in this time. Of course, the livelihood, near about 200 million people of Bangladesh, Bhutan, Maldives, Nepal, and Sri Lanka are threatened. And no doubt, the rapid loss of snow cover and Himalayas and rising of sea level, these are the clear affected. As our another speaker from Netherlands University, he told that he melting our ice cap, he showed a very good equation regarding sea level rising, how it is happening. I need to thank him. In his presentation, he covered this very nicely, how the global temperature is rising and our sea level is rising, or ultimately our food security, agriculture, all the things are becoming affected. And this sort of thing, if we discuss in our South Asia region, no doubt our developing world, we know very well, we are very much less emission countries of these areas. We countries are responsible for emitting, but we, the countries, I should say, the mostly affected. Less responsible, but mostly affected. This is our fate. So I like to draw your kind attention towards another thing, as we know that what is the real impact of climate change. It is already discussed. I don't like to go over there, especially India, Maldives, Bangladesh, sea level rising. These are very crucial situations. So if we go, what we need to do, in fact, what could be the main challenge? How could we address this climate change impact in our country, especially the Bay of Bengal region and blue economy, our ocean, all the things are discussed here. And our respected speaker, they mentioned very nicely. So what could be the solution? These sort of questions are here if we analyze the questions in the chat box. Of course, our offshore wind, this emission, how could we stop it? How could we cope up? How could we manage our situation in this position? Our wind can be used. How could we use it? Offshore wind can provide more electricity. And the world needs it, I think, this time. Not only for Bangladesh. The whole world is seeking for this. We need to use this wind power at first, I think. Then fossil fuel we are using. How to reduce this fossil fuel use all over the world. That could be also a very important aspect to address. Then we definitely need urgent climate action to defend ourselves and our planet from the climate crisis. So how it is coming, how we will be addressing, this is a big challenge. Now we are also looking towards another recommendation will be here, growing sustainably through research and innovation. Research and innovation is very important part that our university teachers and our fellow researchers, they could address this, and it will be a very important aspect, I think. Then climate change is widely considered to be one of the greatest challenges to modern human civilization, and our socio-economic and environmental impact that we discussed. And it is essential to develop different strategies that include adaptation, mitigation, and technological development and research to combat this climate challenge. Also, our imperative to take proper role in planning national and regional programs for adaptation, mitigation. And this program definitely, one country, it's very difficult to beat this challenge. So we need to come together. Some regional and global organizations who are responsible to address this sort of challenge, we need to come up. Like so many organizations we have. So by developing cooperative situation, country to country, I think it is possible to address this climate challenge. And finally, mitigation adaptation framework for the Sustainable Development Plan is very urgently needed. And no doubt, a holistic approach will be appreciated. Otherwise, this will, we know, very catastrophe for all over the world. And we don't need to forget the this pandemic situation. We know pandemic, we hope everyone that once upon a time it will be no more and the world will be facing this very nicely. Inshallah, I have that confidence. But simultaneously, if we think about the climate change challenge, it will be there. So if we could manage this challenge together, that will be the big achievement for the world, I should say. So I don't like to continue more over these issues as time constraint is there and our honorable speaker and panel is there. So many questions are there. I think moderator is waiting to stop me for replying the questions. We like to hear from our respected panelists over the questions, and I like to be stopped. Thanks again towards our Vice Chancellor and the organizer and the moderator, all the speakers for arranging such a crucial aspects in this platform and webinar discussion. I think this university will be continuing such a program in the coming days, and we could learn more from the university, especially special thanks to VC and moderator. Thank you very much for your passion sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mujibur. Dear audience and guest speakers, keynote speakers, I think we had a long session today. And although we had plans to finish it, the Vice Chancellor gave me a cutoff time at 1:70, that's 5 p.m. I think we got about 10 minutes time. So we can take, I think, one or two questions by each speakers. I'm sure you have seen the, sir.
We can have another additional
10 minutes.
15 minutes. Up to 5:15, I think it's safely we can continue.
Yeah, okay. We will try to do that.
Well. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll try to do that before Margaret.
So that actually we can give one round to all the speaker and keynote speaker if they can just have their final comments.
Yes, so I'm sure you have seen the questions, sir. So let me start with Dr. Ainunisha, sir. You got 2 minutes time, sir, to respond, sir.
Excuse me, sir. What about the panelist?
Is there any burning question anybody wants to come up with, or because there are a lot of questions that are already there in the box? So what I thought of is that I'm sure everybody has seen most of the questions, and most of the questions are almost common in nature. So if the speakers wants to take one or two questions and sum it up and talk for 2 minutes, and if there is some more time in hand, then we can allow the panelists to ask.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Dr. Ainunisha, sir. সেটা আনমিউট করে নিতে হবে, স্যার।
Again, my apologies for not being able to show the slides. The slides were very detailed and insightful, contain lot of data and up-to-date data. I have sent the slides to the organizers, and if anyone is interested, can collect it from the organizers.
We'll pass it on.
I was reading many of these questions, and this particular webinar focused on climate change. So we did not talk about other environmental concerns. We did not talk about SDG 14. So it was SDG 13 on which we tried to focus only. And I would like to just make one point, that Bangladesh is not responsible in any way on global warming. Still, our Prime Minister is very keen to demonstrate to the world that we shall push for mitigation to our level best. Bangladesh is planning to cut down by 5% of the greenhouse emissions on their own, and by 15% if additional funds and technologies are received. And she has instructed us to update the NDC document, this National Determined Contribution document, by end of December. It's a tall order to do it in 2 months. We plan to do it. And please also distinguish between two words, which is the word mitigation in disaster management and mitigation in climate change. Mitigation in climate change is reduction of the greenhouse gases, or also absorption of the carbon dioxide by forests and other things. And mitigation in disaster management is minimizing the adverse impacts of the disaster. So roughly, adaptation in climate change is equal to mitigation in disaster management. And there is nothing equivalent to mitigation in disaster management. And this is totally different. I humbly request all the academics present here to clarify it with the students. Wherever I go, I always find that there is a total confusion between mitigation of disaster management and mitigation of climate change. With that, let me say thank you very much.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. You're always very kind and very precise and absolutely to the point, sir. Now, Dr. Alvaro, you got 2 minutes. You got to unmute.
Sorry, I'm unmuted now. I saw a question here about the conveyor belt. The conveyor belt is the deep ocean, the deep ocean circulation, and the engine of the conveyor belt is actually in the North Atlantic. That's where the conveyor belt starts, where very dense cold water sinks into the deep ocean and starts moving slowly and then rising again in the southern hemisphere and driving this worldwide ocean circulation. The time scale, just for you to have an idea, the time scale of the conveyor belt is of the order of 1,000 years. So if we have a parcel of water sinking in the North Atlantic, this parcel of water would take about 1,000 years to go back to the same point. And as I mentioned, the engine is in the North Atlantic, and it's very much related to the ice formation. When ice forms, ice is actually fresh water. It's sea ice, but ice doesn't allow salinity. Doesn't allow salt in. When water freezes in the ocean, it releases salt. So we have cold water in the very North Atlantic, very cold water and very saline water. So this water becomes very dense. So you already see what might happen if we stop the ice formation in the North Atlantic. We can indeed cause or change this very, very large scale or time large scale deep ocean circulation. This is there's no precise idea about how climate change can in fact disrupt the deep ocean circulation. It can in fact affect it in the long course, and this is extremely complicated because the ocean has a very, very large time scale, a very, very large latency in terms of response to climate change. If we disrupt the conveyor belt or the deep ocean circulation, we can in fact alter completely the climate system as we know it. Will it have an impact in Bangladesh or in the Bay of Bengal? That was the last part of the question. Indeed, it will, not directly, because the conveyor belt doesn't enter the Bay of Bengal. It does cross the maritime continent, so through Indonesia, but not exactly in Bay of Bengal. But the climate system is a global system, so everything will have an impact. If we disrupt, that's why I mentioned before that the ice formation in the Arctic Ocean has an indirect impact in the climate of Bay of Bengal. So by disrupting the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt, definitely there will be an impact in South Asia and in the Bay of Bengal.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Dr. Nazrul Islam.
Thank you very much, sir. I would like to thank you, Dr. Mujibur Rahman, sir, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, DG. He mentioned rightly the science and policy nexus is important for mitigation and adaptation for climate change. Today we discuss about the many science, but important is to science and policy integration or build the relationship. How can we people aware about the climate change impact? Actually, global scale, we define many models. Professor Saiful, me, and including Alvaro and another professor shows many model is a global scale. But important is that downscaling, is it to regional to local? This scaling, downscaling is very important for science. So we have to develop some regional model or local model for prediction the future climate change. Then we can predict our regional, Bay of Bengal region, what type of climate change could be occurred in near future. And that's why we will go to the policy, we will make some policy to follow this model. I think this is not a single model. We can not predict any coastal mitigation or vulnerability or risk. We cannot predict. So we need to integrate many models to find out a solution for build up a awareness to the general peoples. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Dr. Ali, you got 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Can I saw two very interesting questions there in the chat box. I wanted to just share my screen quickly and answer the first one. One question was why we don't see action. Yeah. So I have a slide here called Barriers of Adaptation. Actually, it is for port. And the main reason that we don't see action is that there is some insufficient still, although we talk a lot about science, but as my colleague just said, there is not enough confidence in society yet that the climate change is happening. So this communication is important. We need to be able to communicate the scientific findings to public. The other barrier that we usually face is that the climate adaptation means taking long-term decisions, but our investors are usually looking in a very shorter time plan. Other important one is that we need to look at the global interaction, not only our small local like port, which is a bit just a small piece of the whole thing. And normally the short-term business risks are more in the view of our executive, our managers, than the longer risk. So this is also another reason that the climate change adaptation are lower. Also, still considering climate risk as sustainability and environmental issues rather than financial issues. So still, some people think that it is the climate change is not important for our economy. However, we are seeing that it is very important. So these are the main barriers that although we have a lot of awareness meetings such as this, but we don't get to action. There was another question that I saw was about what we can do now with the port. So what are the adaptation that we can do in ports? I just want to show you here that we need to look into two different ways, one for existing port and one for future designs. Yeah. So in general, we can protect what we have, or we can accommodate and accept the risk or retreat. Based on what will happen, we need to choose one of these three strategies, how to deal with the climate change and adapt to climate change. And of course, when we are designing new ports, we should try to avoid or accommodate what is happening in a pre-designed and understood way, rather than reacting to the problems for the future. But as I mentioned, this is a subject for a larger discussion, how we can build resilience in our existing ports and how we can design future ports. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ali. Very precise and very practical. Thank you very much. Dr. Saiful Islam?
Yeah, yes. Thank you. I think I'd just like to clarify we are doing the regional actually projections. It's not only the global projection. Just show one slide really very quickly to show that this model actually set up for the Bay of Bengal and with the sea level rise conditions. So it's a regional projection. We also use downscale results, and at the end of my presentation, we can find many publication over this region. So this is one. Second, I find a couple of interesting questions. I very quickly like to respond. One is not only sea level rise, its salinity is a big issue. Yes, and salinity will be increasing because of sea level rise. Not only climate change, but also freshwater withdrawal from upstream. Both will act. So some of the impact actually climate change may host, but that without climate change, that's already there, because we see huge salinity changes, particularly southwest Bangladesh. That person Nishat sir said that one is how much disaster we are facing, and next is how the mitigation the big emitter has to do. And the third one is the adaptation that the vulnerable countries like Bangladesh can adapt. So please distinguish that even without climate change, we also facing a lot of issues. And the second question was on the not only sea level rise, but flood. Yes, the projections of monsoon flooding will be increased because of increasing precipitation. And even cyclone have more precipitation because due to the global warming, the atmospheric moisture holding capacity will be increased. Also, evaporation will be increased in the cyclones. So in future, both will act. And there are some interesting questions, but I think time is short. Some of the last question, I think, Professor Nishat sir can actually respond. Already he told what are the 2-3 most important challenges. One is we are seeing that sea level rise condition and salinity in the coastal area, and increasing storms storms and cyclone, and also the prolonged monsoon. These are making our disaster more vulnerable in the future. But we also face the challenges of drought and heat stress and other, like even the riverbank erosion is increasing because of the huge water flow in the monsoon. So Bangladesh has to work hard actually, because it is one of the most vulnerable countries in terms of climate change. So our development partners like Netherlands and others need more support to Bangladesh to become more resilient to fight with this vulnerability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Now, can we have some comment from Mr. Dr. Mujibur Rahman, please?
Unmute, please.
Sir, please unmute your mic, sir.
thank you very much. Again, giving me the floor over the issues to address few questions. But so many questions are there, and the nature of questions, as you mentioned, is almost same. Very important questions. I think I need to address what the government is doing over the climate change aspects at present in Bangladesh. This is very important questions. I think actually we know very well it's not a problem that only country like Bangladesh only facing this problem. As I told earlier, it's a global problem, regional problem. Who is not facing this problem? So how we are facing, if we think about the present scenario, we have so many programs over this. Bangladesh government has developed a climate change trust fund. It is working. We have the biodiversity conservation program, sustainable consumption and production, waste management on climate change, especially blue economy. In the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there is a different wing who are responsible to address these ocean issues, especially for the Asian Seas program, South Asian Seas program. They are addressing very nicely. But as I told you, our South Asia, there is an organization named SACEB, South Asia Cooperative Environment Program. Actually, they are nicely addressing over this region how to address our climate change impact and how we mitigate the challenges. It is actually they are performing nicely. But finally, I'll be definitely, I need to mention it, mitigation and adaptation framework and sustainable development planning. It's very urgent. Without developing and without having a holistic approach, it's very difficult combating these challenges. And no doubt, unless there is a concerted effort worldwide to cut greenhouse gas emission, I should say, all over the world, we will be suffer huge economic, social, and environmental damage from the consequences of climate change. I could say this. So with this, I think, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So can I request one of our guru here, Professor Dr. Aftab Khan, sir, if you want to make one or two comments, please, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving me floor. I'm very much grateful to the presenter. All of them have presented an excellent dissemination of the knowledge in their respective domain. But what I personally feel that the academic webinar like this should have a presentation that could tell the other side, a story of the other side of the coin. Because climate change is an idea, and which is very much, circulating in the global diplomacy and domestic politics. So, in fact, we got the story of one side of the coin, but hopefully that the next webinar will have the story also the other side of the coin. This is my very humble confession. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You have always been very, very straightforward and very candid, sir. With the permission of the Vice Chancellor, can I make the concluding remarks, sir?
So somebody just wanted to say something among the panelists.
All right.
Give me a chance. I think
Dr. Hafiza Khatun. Okay, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I will be very short. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Just I want to mention one thing in response to Professor Ainun Nishat's answer. Yes, he is right, because climate problem or climate change management and disaster management is separate thing. But climate change is inducing disaster. We are uttering this word again and again. Like just one example I am putting, that is the salinity. We are telling that because of sea level rise, salinity is increasing. But on the other way around, we have to think, is it the only reason? If it is not, how to manage? So we are facing it. So when we talk about this, there are so many things are overlapping. So climate change is macro level, but disaster management to some extent for the regional context is the micro. But these are overlapping and we are facing. So whenever we will discuss, we should address both, maybe macro and micro, but even these are overlapping. That is my suggestion. Thank you very much.
Excellent, ma'am. Thank you very much.
And just from my side, just to say goodbye and thanks to all our distinguished participants here. And on behalf of the Bangabandhu Sheikh Maritime University as the Vice Chancellor, I really find it, I really feel privileged to be in company with you for last almost 3 hours. Thanks to Dr. Anu Nishat and all other speakers from home and abroad. The discussion has been very lively, and I thank to the moderator, Admiral Anwar, and I think I now get more interest and more enthusiasm to arrange similar initiatives and similar webinars in future more frequently, because I really find that it has been a great success and a lot of participants have been with us today. And thank you very much, all of you, and wish to see you in next webinar once again. Thank you. Thank you. Over to the moderator to close up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor. I will be very, very brief because I know the time is very short and I don't think anybody has really patience to listen to me. Ladies and gentlemen, from the speech of all the speakers and the discussions, it's clear that Bangladesh and the Bay of Bengal region is among the countries that are expected to be worst affected by climate change. The government of Bangladesh is aware of this and taking various initiatives to redress the climate change crisis or the challenges. The most notable initiative remains the formulation and implementation of Bangladesh Delta Plan 2100 and of course the SDGs and Vision 2041, and all are comes one after another, and we are really championing, trying to become champion in these aspects. The climate change is an unfolding physical phenomena with very drastic and adverse environmental, economic, social, and human consequences. And in this regard, increased awareness can assist in preparing and implementing climate change adaptation measures such as adjustments in natural and man-made systems to reduce the likely impact of this climate change. The mitigation efforts include the research, development of low-energy carbon technologies, enhance energy efficiency, policies to reduce fossil fuel emissions, reforestation, forest preservation, and scientists and governments are also working to adapt the current and future global warming effects through general awareness, coastal protection, disaster management, development of resistant crops, and consideration in major infrastructural development in the coastal area, port, and other places, as we have learned today. The important thing that we also learned that communicating scientific findings to the public in order to bring much awareness, which is extremely important, which will definitely reshape the government policies, and enforce the bureaucrats to do things not like the previous years, but to do things something which is really need to be done, and also to allow or to bring in the business communities into a long-time investment considering all these factors. Ladies and gentlemen, whatever may be the outcome of the US election, which we discussed quite seriously, of course, the impact of climate change is real. Hence, hopefully this webinar will help all participants to address the impact of global warming and increase our climate literacy, change our attitudes and behaviors towards climate change crisis. I'm sure that this webinar will contribute in informed decision making by our policymakers, play an essential role in increasing adoption and mitigation capabilities of communities to adopt sustainable lifestyle, particularly for our generation to come. With these few words, I would like to thank all the wonderful people that all are here with us today, who spoke so profoundly, so eloquently, and enlightened us with your knowledge. I'm sure if you kindly share your slides, your thoughts, we will definitely circulate it among our students as well as the panelists and others, whoever interested, and would like to spread the knowledge as much as possible. Again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and have a good evening to all of you. And for the Netherlands, have a good day. Thank you once again. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much. In Netherlands, stay safe, please.
Thank you, Admiral.
Alvaro.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ainu Nishat, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Masoom, thank you. Dr. Nazrul, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Dr. Saiful, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye, Ali. Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Dr. Hafiza, thank you. Madam, thank you very much. আপনি কোন ইউনিভার্সিটিতে আছেন?
ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটি। ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটি জিওগ্রাফি ডিপার্টমেন্ট।
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. আপনাকে আমাদের এখানে নিয়ে আসবো as the adjunct faculty যদি সময় থাকে।
আচ্ছা দেখেন।
আমার ইউনিভার্সিটি। জি, thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. Bye. Bye.
Assalamu alaikum.